Festival 2023 organized by Frontlist Media. This year's theme is Taking Humanity Forward. Today we all are present here to celebrate the affection for literature and discuss the prevalent subject matters prevailing in the society and establish engineering conversation with the audience. The session theme is Mental Health and Wellness. Session topic for today is Normalizing Mental Wellness Beyond Depression and Suicide Prevention. Today we have two very special guests with us, Dr. Samir Parikh and Mr. Kapil Gupta. Dr. Samir Parikh, a global mental health practitioner. He is a consultant psychiatrist and is the director of Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences, Fortis Healthcare. He is one of the leading academic experts in the field of mental health and conducts training programs and courses for doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, allied specialists, and initiates several awareness campaigns for the community. Now we have Mr. Kapil Gupta with us, a mental health activist. He has been passionately exploring the mental wellness space and is the key brain behind Solh Wellness. A marketeer to the core, Kapil Gupta is an entrepreneur both in thought and in style. He's a passionate entrepreneur who believes in providing true meaning to various organizations he runs and build them in sync with one another. He jokingly calls himself Jack of all trades and masters of some. My first question to you for today is, for people it's easy to listen to other people's problem rather than speaking about their own. What can be done to overcome this stigma?
Which is the way you look at it. Sometimes it's not easy to listen to people as well if you look at it from the angle of compassion, the angle of empathy. It's not always that we are open to listening to people. It's the reaction that we give would also be important to decide whether we are open or not. But look at the milieu. Look at all around us. For decades, portrayal of mental health has been what? Comedy in films. It's been violence in films. OTT starts showing psychopathy and then they come up with some kind of a mental health diagnosis. You also need to understand that, let's say before 1950s, there was no treatment, no medications at least. There was treatment but no medications. Then medications started coming in. Initial ones had a lot of side effects. Then more advance in science happened. So for years and decades, there has been so much of stigma. You tell people crying is not good. You tell people aggression is good. You tell people have this role only, have this behavior only. In that context, what happens is, people are not confident that if they share a concern, a distress, how would the response be? What if I'm discriminated against? What if I'm mocked? What if the stereotypical thought processes come to me as stigma? What if I am only blamed for it? What if the consequence is that I will lose friends or my job or my family will not see me in the same way? Even today, in spite of all the awareness, 75% of people globally do not seek help because of the fear of being discriminated against. And that's the difficulty. Until the environment, the milieu, has honest compassion and empathy, recognizes mental health as something that needs to be prioritized, we will continue to have this conversation that people won't come and speak
up. So Kapil, what's your take on that?
I mean, of course, I'm sitting with the biggest expert, so and I do agree. There is a lot of discrimination that is still there, and I think there is this, in my view at least, there is this aspect of people when they have problems or when they have mental health challenges. It is not necessarily that they have mental health challenges in all aspects of their life. There may be mental health stress that somebody has in their workplace, or somebody has in their school, or somebody has in their home, or in some specific aspect of mental health. We as a society haven't grown to the point, specifically in mental health discussions, where we can create that lining for people. So that discrimination would come in because I would share something that is happening with me in workplace, and it will clearly be extrapolated to all aspects of my life by everybody around me. And then there is a fear that people have, I mean, discrimination, of course, there is a fear that people have that one, they will be judged, and two, at certain points they may be manipulated, and three, at certain points, whatever issues they have, they just simply maybe trivialize saying, hey, you suffer from this, hence this is going on. And so I agree that there is this problem of discrimination that needs immediate help.
So my next question to you, Dr. Samir Parikh, is as you are a mental health practitioner and a mental health expert as well, what is the things that you do on a day-to-day basis to just to keep up with your mental health? Is there anything that you practice or anything that you follow?
See, not an easy answer to give you. See, the thing is that if you want to look at taking care of your mental health, and if I look at using myself as an example, then I think it starts from the comfort in what I do. I feel that I am doing what I wanted to do. I'm comfortable doing. I'm in a branch that I'm exceptionally proud of being. I have no comparisons of what this branch does, what that branch does. You rewind my life 30 years, as many times as you want, I will still end up choosing psychiatry again and again. I think that one thing is very important because it also allows me to continue to do what I do. And the second aspect, again, that I tell people as well is the place where you work, the relationships at work are very important for your mental health. You can't like what you do, but you don't like where you do it, or you don't like the people you work with. That doesn't work. So, I've always believed workplace is an extension of family. So that works for me. That you can walk in and have a cup of tea with a colleague, and those subtle breaks required in a day. And then the strength of your family and friend support, and that happens when you invest time in it. On a separate note, if there is a struggle, you don't hesitate to speak to someone. And there will be struggles, and just because you're a mental health practitioner, that doesn't mean that you won't struggle. Of course, you'll struggle. And at a more personal level, I read a lot. In fact, I tell all young psychologists, especially, that they should read a lot more. Textbooks, yes, but a lot more because it opens up your horizons a lot, brings a different sense of empathy. I listen to classical music, so if Hindustani classical is what I listen to, so my day begins and ends with a nice vocal, which really helps. And I spend a lot of time with plants. They don't talk back to me, so they give me the mindful silence that is required in this chaos of life. That's what I do.
I think that is something that amazing you do, and I think I might start listening to classical music as well. So I would like to move on to Kapil. Kapil, is there anything that you do to just calm yourself or anything that you practice?
I'll take the concept that Dr. Parikh said, comfort, to the next level. I love what I do. Okay, if I have to do it all over again, I would still do this. And interestingly, for me personally, it's not just that I love the work that I do. I actually love the chaos that comes with it more. If all chaos from my workplace is removed, I don't think I'll be enjoying it as much. So I'm kind of, in some ways, you could say, wired a little differently in that sense. While I say that, I think at Dr. Parikh's level, at my level, it is much easier for us to say love what you do, love the environment that you are in, and everything. I think for people who are younger than us, people who are in the initial phases of their career, or people who are perennially in an employed situation versus being an employer situation, for them, this concept needs further exploration. I always tell everybody that works for me, have a belief in the system that you are in. The day that you lose belief in the system, leave the system. So you need to be comfortable with, you need to love, you need to enjoy what you are doing. And only if you are in that situation would you be able to flourish and would you be able to give your best.
I think that's a similar point of view for both of you, that you're pretty comfortable with what you do and you would rather do it all over again and you still don't have a smile, still have the same smile on the face. Kapil, I have another question for you. As you said a lot of times that you believe in providing a customized support structure to people. What do you basically mean by providing a customized support structure?
See, I have a very firm belief that specifically mental health is one of the one of the practices where nobody has a set path. It's not like COVID. You have COVID, you take Dolo 50. If it has been X number of days, you take Remdesivir. If it's been more, you take Tocilizumab injection. If it is more, you start looking at your breathing, get into a hospital, There is a set pattern for every disease, for every sickness, for every issue, every challenge. I firmly believe mental health doesn't work that way. Everybody has a unique set of requirements, a unique solution to what they would do. Everybody has unique stimuluses that they would require. I mean, Dr. Parikh talked about classical music. I'm not sure if classical music would cut it for me. And I know people for whom a rock music or heavy metal would cut it for them. Forget about a soft, soothing classical music. So everybody has different stimulus. There are people who find joy in cooking. There are people who find joy in dancing. There are people who find joy in different other areas. So what I believe is, if we can create some kind of a platform, if we can create some kind of a solution where people can chart and people can create a customized, personalized journey for themselves, that I think will be where we will be providing value. And I'm saying this, let me categorize it specifically by saying, I'm not talking about people that are suffering from mental health disorders and should consult a psychologist or a psychiatrist right away. They should absolutely do right that. I'm talking about, or I'm working with people who are not there, and I'm trying to see if I can provide solution or if I can create an environment where maybe at times some people don't need to go to Dr. Parikh and they get their problems resolved much before that.
No, I just need to add something here, just for clarity. Healthcare per se is customized, period.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that one part. So, for example, if A person comes to me with depression, B comes to me with depression, C comes to me with depression, their clinical diagnosis may be same. They may probably end up having the same or slightly different version of medication, but it will still be customized to their individual social, self, family, thought process, personality, goals of life, zone where they are, and that's a part of the therapeutic process. And this applies to across healthcare. All liver ailments with the same diagnosis won't have. At the same time, evidence-based, standardized treatment is also what healthcare is. So I don't get to say that you have an anxiety disorder, I decide you can do this or do that. No, there are guidelines. This is when you go for therapy. This is the therapy that works for you. At this level, you need medications. This is your level 1, level 2, level 3. That is it. Something we must understand when we talk about mental health. So that's one part of it. The other part, where I agree to what you were saying, was for each individual, what matters to them, what brings a sense of joy or comfort to them, would obviously differ from individual to individual. There can't be a prescription to the joys of life, but there is very much a standardized evidence-based approach to clinical concerns as and when they occur, including for preventive community mental health.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Moving on, this question is for you, Dr. Samir Parikh. So, on a day-to-day basis, you see a lot of patients, and I have this question to a lot of people who are practicing mental health as a practitioner. So you see a lot of patients on a day-to-day basis, and they have a lot of trauma stories behind that goes on a day-to-day basis when you hear it out. Do you think there is something that you might take back home? Is there anything that you feel is that you get attached to, or what do you do when you hear something which is a little disturbing?
I think this is as cliche as it gets, and these are questions unfortunately asked a lot more in these times to mental health professionals. Would you ask this question to a journalist? Would you ask this question to a cardiologist? Would you ask this question to a cancer specialist? Would you ask this question to somebody working in the ICU, somebody working in the emergency? Would you ask this to the police personnel? So on and so forth. Every occupation will come with its own nuances, its own hazards, its own challenges, and it's very much a part of what you are supposed to do and how you are supposed to do. You are trained to approach each episode of intervention, and you're also trained to identify what you can and can't do, what you can refer, or what you feel that if it's having an impact, what to do with that. But I do feel that sometimes we end up adding a lot of glamour, and I see this as a form of glamour and or stigma when it comes to mental health practitioners. That, oh, you are a psychologist, so do you just look at my face and know what I'm thinking? Rubbish. Or you are a psychologist, so does that mean that your friendship will be better? Nonsense. Or you're a psychologist, so you will be leading your life better and you'll be able to deal with relationships better than others. Not true. Just because a friend is a cardiologist doesn't mean that they might not require a stent in the future. Right? This is life. And I think that's how it needs to be seen. Like any other profession, you need to be trained, you need to upgrade your training, you need to approach it like any other scientific clinical branch of health.
Absolutely. So moving on. So mental health is a very controversial topic when it comes to our society, and the decision makers are making decisions when it comes to mental health for people who are only suffering from it, not for people who might end up into a serious disorder or some issue. What do you think they do they need to widen up their perspective about it? What can be done, or what could you recommend for the future when it comes?
See, let's start from the top. Um, would you want everybody to have the best food possible? Yes. Can you afford to do that? No. So what you do is you have people who are able to afford, who are able to buy their own food, do that, and then the government comes in and it provides capabilities for people who are in the bottom of the pyramid. Government does food security bills and stuff like that. It's the same problem across all industries, and it continues in mental health as well. Specifically in a resource crunched country, in a developing, I mean still poor country like India, there are not enough psychiatrists. There is not enough government funding. There is not enough support structure possible to even treat people with serious disorders. I mean, we guys sit in a cosmopolitan. We sit in Delhi, and we talk about mental health, and we talk about how we are able to create these clinics and provide value and the super work that Dr. Parikh and his team does, which go back to the inner stratas within the country, or go back to one level down with people who require assistance. But it's not a question of that they don't have resources, but it purely may be a question of they don't have the need at that urgent level. And there, I think it's not the government's job. I mean, what is the government going to do? Provide a capability that everybody has? It's just not feasible. I think over there is a serious need for innovation. Neither the government, nor practitioners like Dr. Parikh, nor the ecosystem, I don't think they will be sufficient enough to solve the problem, and that is not just true for mental health, that is true for almost everything in the world, for every requirement that people have. That is where I think there is a lot more innovation to be done, a lot more value to be created, such that we are able to reach out, we are able to serve, and we are able to be valuable to everybody around.
Dr. Bhai,
I just
your
to
take
add
on
this,
that?
mental health is not a controversial topic. It's a stigmatized topic, right? So let's not use the word controversy when it comes to mental health. It's very important for all of us to understand this. Controversies happen when people say what they should not be saying. create information which is incorrect, stigmatize people, discriminate people against, and then we have the word controls. There's nothing controversial about mental health. It's a science, right? Let's be very clear about it. You define health without mental health. You can't.
Yeah.
1 in 6 people living in disability, 1 in 6 years lived in disability is because of mental health concerns. The cost of mental health to the world has crossed the 3 trillion mark. 10 to 15% of working adults, according to the 2019 survey, have a mental health condition at this moment in time. One individual dies by suicide every 40 seconds. The problem is out there. There is no question about inequality of resources. It's a fact of life. You have, in some countries, the ratio between a mental health professional and the population ranges from 1 to 2 a lakh to high income countries that have 70 per lakh. So that's a fact. That deficit is not going to go anywhere. So what can be done has to be the question. I believe in the last few years, the government has taken important steps. The Mental Health Act was a step forward. The Supreme Court judgment of decriminalization of suicide was absolutely needed step forward. I think the tele-mental health approach that the government has now put in is a remarkable approach, because I've always believed telehealth is where the solution to mental health in a country like ours lies. That at the click of a button, you should be able to get the best access possible in an affordable manner. At the same time, there are certain things that need to be done. For example, mental health curriculum in schools, and I think we are walking the talk there. The process is happening. We've written a curriculum ourselves. This curriculum has been now taken over by hundreds of schools, not just here, but some schools in the Middle East as well. So mental health curriculum in schools. I think mental health outcomes in the corporate sector is something that needs to be looked at. We need to work on psychological first aid at all levels, because psychological first aid is the first intervention that happens. To create more intervention helplines in all of our languages, so that people during crisis know where they can reach out to. We have a helpline which is running 24/7 for the past several years. It's in 14 Indian languages. It's just not good enough a number for us. We need more and more and more helplines doing this job. We need to integrate mental health in the primary health sector. We need to utilize the Anganwadi workforce to be able to create more awareness. And telehealth takes that awareness and mixes up with access. Because awareness alone is not good enough if you don't have access to help. And that access needs to be again affordable and reaching in the right time. All of this needs to happen. And that's the way to look at mental health. And yes, everybody has a role to play. You in media have a role to play, create awareness in the right manner, in a sustained right manner. But we are in a literature festival. I mean, who would have thought, let's say, a couple of decades back, that a mental health conversation is happening in a literature festival? Who would have thought that mental health literature would be there? When Kapish from Rupa Publications a few years back met me just around the corner for lunch, and he told me there isn't enough literature, I want to write a book a year. And so if you're listening, Kapish Mehra, Rupa Publications, I keep writing only because you forced me to write a book a year. And so that's a role to play. I think entertainment media has a role to play as well. They need to really reflect into the kind of content they are creating and have responsibility. In the name of creative liberty, you cannot cross the line of human sensitivity. And you need to be responsible. I'm not somebody who believes in censoring and banning, but I do believe in peer review, and I do believe in self-censorship. How do you get a medical journal? It's peer reviewed. I just can't randomly write an article and publish it in the name of freedom of expression. That's nonsense. So what do you do about that? Because children are vulnerable, and then giving media literacy to them. There is a role that social media platforms need to have. Not merely an edit button if you want on Twitter, but how about looking at media literacy and becoming more responsible when it comes to the interface you have with young people? How about giving the right information at the right time? All of this has to come together in a consistent manner for the next 2 decades for a mental health solution. That's the way forward.
I want to quote a specific, media intervention that was required and went very badly. I just saw this movie Freddy a couple of weeks back. They talked about it as a psychological thriller. The story of, I mean, it was just mind boggling. It was not, I mean, it had nothing to do with mental health. Yeah, the person had social disorder. He was not a psychopath. Okay, he had social disorder, and the movie gets promoted as a psychological thriller. I think we create such stigma, specifically when we look at movies and content that is generated by people. Okay, I think we need to start being much more sensitive to what it is being done, and I completely agree with Dr. Parikh. There is a huge need for us to go deep down, and specifically the more intellectual ones, specifically the smarter ones, specifically the ones that think of themselves as the guardians of the society and consider that role to be able to create content and all. We need to be much more sensitive, and we need to know what we are doing.
I truly agree on the fact that when it comes to media and who's responsible for creating awareness about mental health, they need to be more cautious and they need to think more about when they're talking about mental health, and they need to stop passing comments or anything when it comes to mental health and promote it as possible. And thank you, Dr. Samir Parikh, for creating that awareness today on our platform with the PragatiE Vichaar Literature Festival. And thank you, Kapil Gupta, for making us aware about mental health. I think me and the entire audience here learned so much from both of you. Thank you so much for doing this. Have a great day.
Thank you.